She woke up to an entire platoon standing guard. The Cubs demanded she get the highest military honor. Part 1. Clara Westwood woke up slowly, her head heavy with the weight of sleep. She blinked and found herself not in her small quarters on the military base, but in a large room that smelled faintly of metal and oil. Sunlight streamed through high windows, catching on the polished floor. She sat up quickly, confused, and that was when she noticed them. An entire platoon of soldiers stood at attention around her bed. Each one was perfectly uniformed, their helmets tucked under one arm, rifles slung neatly across their chests. They were silent, but their presence made Clara's heart beat faster. What is this?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Lieutenant Harper, a tall man with short brown hair and calm eyes, stepped forward. "Good morning, Sergeant Westwood. You are awake. That is good. The platoon is here for you." Clara frowned. She had been on many missions before, and she had seen soldiers stand at attention, but never like this. Never for her. She swung her legs over the side of the bed, her bare feet touching the cold floor. "For me? What?" Harper's expression softened. "Because you saved the Cubs. All of them. You know what that means." Clara shook her head. She was still groggy, trying to pull her thoughts together. "The Cubs? They are young soldiers," Harper explained gently. "New recruits. They call themselves the Cubs. You saved their lives during the operation on Varka 9, and they demanded that you receive the highest military honor." Clara's mouth went dry. She tried to remember, but the memories of Varka 9 were still sharp. The mission had been brutal. Their transport had been ambushed by alien forces. They were supposed to deliver supplies to the outpost, but the outpost was under heavy fire. The air had been thick with smoke and dust. Clara remembered the screams, the heat, the confusion. And then she remembered the moment she had realized she could do something to save the young soldiers trapped behind enemy lines. They want me to get the medal?" she whispered, disbelief in her voice. Harper nodded. "Yes, they have already written the petition. They want the commander to approve it immediately, and they insisted on standing guard for you until the ceremony." Clara swallowed. She had never expected anything like this. She had always done her duty quietly. She had saved lives because it was the right thing to do, not for recognition. And yet, here they were, an entire platoon standing guard just for her. Her eyes moved across the room. The soldiers were motionless, their eyes straight ahead, but she could see the respect in their posture. Each one of them had a story, a life, a reason for being here, and they all trusted her. "Harper, you don't understand," she said, shaking her head. "I didn't do anything special. You risked your life for them," Harper interrupted gently. "That is special. That is heroic. And they know it." Clara closed her eyes, trying to process it all. She had seen courage in others, bravery in the face of impossible odds. But she had never felt it directed at her. The idea that someone could value her life, her choices, her actions, it was strange and comforting all at once. Suddenly, a soft voice broke the silence. "Sergeant Westwood." Clara opened her eyes and saw a young woman standing at the door. She was no older than 19, with short blonde hair and wide, nervous eyes. The young soldier stepped forward. I'm one of the Cubs you saved. My name is Lily Carter. I just wanted to say thank you." Clara felt a lump form in her throat. She reached out and took Lily's hand gently. "You don't have to thank me," she said softly. "You did your part too. You were brave." Lily shook her head. "No, you pulled us out when everything seemed lost. You didn't hesitate. You risked yourself for us. That makes you more than brave. It makes you a hero." Clara blinked, unable to speak for a moment. She had never heard anyone call her that before. The words sounded strange on her lips, but in her heart, it sparked something she couldn't ignore, a quiet pride, a recognition of what she had done. One by one, more of the Cubs approached. Each one wanted to speak, wanted to express their gratitude. They were nervous, awkward, but sincere. Clara listened to each story, each recollection of that day on Varka 9. She remembered it differently through their eyes. How her quick thinking had saved them. How her calm under fire had given them hope. By the time the last of the Cubs had spoken, Clara was exhausted, but her heart was full. She realized that she had made a difference. Not just as a soldier, but as someone who had protected others, who had inspired hope. Lieutenant Harper cleared his throat. The commander has authorized the medal ceremony. It will be held today. The platoon will accompany you. They insisted on it. Clara took a deep breath. I don't know what to say. I've never been honored like this before. You don't need to say anything, Harper said. Your actions spoke louder than words ever could. As the morning passed, the platoon moved with precision. Clara followed, her heart pounding, through corridors filled with soldiers and officers. The halls were decorated with banners of past victories, reminders of the sacrifices made by those who came before. Yet today, all of that seemed to fade away. Today, it was about her. When they reached the ceremonial hall, Clara saw a crowd gathered. Not just soldiers, but civilians, journalists, and dignitaries. Cameras flashed as she walked forward, escorted by the platoon. She tried to remain calm, but the magnitude of the moment pressed on her chest. The commander, a stern woman with sharp features named General Evans, stepped forward. Sergeant Clara Westwood, she began, her voice echoing in the hall. You have displayed extraordinary courage and dedication. Your actions on Varka, 9 saved lives, inspired your comrades, and upheld the honor of our forces. For this, you are awarded the highest military honor available. Clara's hands trembled as the medal was placed around her neck. It was heavy, not just in weight, but in meaning. The room erupted in applause, but Clara barely heard it. She looked to the platoon, who stood at attention just as they had in her quarters. Their eyes met hers, and she saw pride, admiration, and loyalty reflected back at her. Lily Carter stepped forward once more. Sergeant Westwood, thank you. We'll never forget what you did. Clara smiled, a tear slipping down her cheek. I'll never forget any of you, she said. You are all heroes in your own right. The ceremony ended, but the platoon stayed close. They had guarded her before, and now they walked beside her, not as soldiers to a superior, but as comrades to a leader. Clara felt a bond with them stronger than she had ever known. Later, when they returned to the barracks, Clara finally allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection. She sat on her bunk, the medal resting on her chest. She thought about the mission on Varka 9, about the fear and chaos, about the choices she had made. And she realized that bravery wasn't about being fearless. It was about standing up when others could not, about protecting those who needed it, about making a difference even when the odds were against you. Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock at the door. It was Lily, holding a small, folded piece of paper. We wrote something for you, she said shyly. Clara took the paper and unfolded it. It was a list of the Cubs' promises, to follow her example, to protect one another, to uphold the values she had shown them. Clara's heart swelled. She realized that her actions had not only saved lives, but had inspired a new generation of soldiers. That night, Clara lay in bed, the medal shining faintly in the lamplight. Outside, the platoon continued their silent vigil. She felt a warmth in her heart, a sense of purpose she had never known. She understood now that her life was not just her own. It belonged to those she protected, to those she inspired, to the people who believed in her even when she doubted herself. And, for the first time in a long while, Clara Westwood slept peacefully, knowing that she had made a difference, and that her story was only beginning. Part 2. The next morning, Clara Westwood woke to the soft hum of the bass. The medal still rested on her chest from the ceremony, a quiet reminder of the respect and gratitude the Cubs had shown her. She stretched, feeling the aches of yesterday's long day, but there was no time to rest. Harper stood by her door, clipboard in hand, looking as calm and precise as ever. Sergeant Westwood, he said, the commander wants you to begin the Cubs' advanced training today. They've requested it. Clara blinked. Training? After everything. Harper gave a small smile. They want to learn from you. They've seen what you can do. They want to be ready if something like Varka 9 happens again. Clara nodded slowly. She had known this day would come. She had hoped it would be peaceful, but peace was rare in their galaxy. The Cubs had survived an ambush, but threats would continue to come. If she could help prepare them, she would. By mid-morning, Clara stood on the training grounds, watching the Cubs gather. There were 10 of them, all wide-eyed, young, and eager. Some still looked nervous, but their determination was clear. Each wore the standard combat uniform, and each carried a training rifle. Clara could see in their faces the fear and hope that every new soldier carried. "Listen up," she called, her voice steady. "I know what happened on Varka. 9 was scary. I know you're young, and you've seen things that most people can't imagine. But the important thing is this: you survived. You are alive because you trusted yourselves, and because you trusted one another. Today, I'm going to help you become stronger. Not just as soldiers, but as a team. You protect each other, or you fail. Remember that." The cubs nodded, their expressions serious. They knew she was not just giving orders. She had been there with them. She had saved them. Her words carried weight they could not ignore. Clara started with the basics: formations, communication drills, and weapon handling. But she didn't just teach with rules and commands. She shared stories from her past missions, examples of choices she had made under pressure. She explained why she had acted the way she did on Varka 9, and what she had learned from mistakes. The cubs listened intently, taking notes and asking questions. One of the cubs, a tall young man named Eric Mason, raised his hand. "Sergeant Westwood, how did you stay calm when the transport was under fire?" I think I would have panicked." Clara looked at him, remembering the chaos of that day. "You don't stay calm," she said softly. "You focus. You think about what you can do, not what you can't. Fear will always be there, but it doesn't control you. You control it. That is how you survive." Eric nodded slowly, absorbing her words. Clara could see the understanding grow in his eyes. That was what training was about, more than drills, more than shooting targets. It was about shaping their minds, teaching them how to face danger with purpose. As the day went on, the training became more intense. Clara set up obstacle courses, simulated combat scenarios, and drills that tested endurance and teamwork. The cubs struggled at first, some falling behind, others making mistakes. But Clara was patient. She corrected them gently, encouraged them, and pushed them just enough to help them grow. During a simulated ambush, Clara watched Lily Carter move with hesitation, unsure of her role. Clara stepped beside her. "Lily, focus. Protect the squad, communicate, and move with confidence. You can do this." Lily nodded, taking a deep breath. She followed Clara's instructions and moved smoothly, covering her teammates and signaling them to advance. Clara smiled. That was progress. That was what they needed. By the afternoon, the cubs had grown noticeably. They moved with coordination, responded quickly to commands, and worked as a team. Clara felt a swell of pride. They were no longer just young soldiers who had survived by luck. They were learning to become capable fighters, capable of facing real danger. Yet Clara knew the training was not just physical. She gathered the cubs in a quiet room for the second part of her lessons: strategy and decision-making. She drew maps on the holoscreen, showing them the battlefields of past missions. "You need to think ahead," she explained. "Don't just react. Anticipate. Know where the threats are, where your squad is, and what choices you have. Every decision matters." A young man named Jason Wells spoke up. "But, Sergeant, sometimes the enemy does something you don't expect." "What then?" Clara nodded. "Then, you adapt. You use what you know, what you've practiced, and you keep moving forward. You never freeze. Freezing gets people killed. Trust yourself, trust your team, and keep going." The cubs studied the maps, asking questions, debating strategies, and learning from Clara's experience. She could see their confidence growing with each session. They were beginning to think like soldiers, like a unit that could survive anything together. Evening came, and Clara walked with the platoon, escorting her back to the barracks. The stars glimmered above the base, distant and cold, but beautiful. Clara's mind wandered to the wider galaxy. Threats were always there: alien forces, rogue factions, unknown dangers. The cubs would face these threats one day, and she needed to prepare them. In the quiet of her room, Clara received a communication from General Evans. "Sergeant Westwood," the general's voice was firm, "we have reports of a new threat in the sector near Varka 9. Recon indicates a hostile fleet is moving toward nearby colonies. We may need to deploy immediately. Prepare your squad." Clara's heart quickened. She had hoped for rest, for a moment of peace after the medal ceremony. But war waited for no one. "Understood, General," she said. She ended the call and turned to her thoughts. The cubs were ready to train, but were they ready for real combat? The next day, Clara and the cubs boarded their transport ship. The platoon followed closely, standing at attention around the young soldiers. Clara looked at them, seeing the nervous determination in their faces. She knew some of them still doubted themselves. That was natural. Fear was part of being human. But Clara also knew something else. They had courage, determination, and the will to survive. That was what mattered. As they approached the sector, alarms blared in the control room. Radar screens showed multiple hostile ships moving quickly toward nearby colonies. Clara's jaw tightened. This was not a drill. This was real. She turned to the cubs. Stay calm. Remember your training. Stick together. Trust me. And trust each other. We get through this together. The cubs nodded, gripping their weapons tightly. They were ready to follow her lead. Clara felt a surge of pride. These young soldiers had seen the worst and were willing to fight, willing to protect those who could not protect themselves. That was what made them heroes, and it reminded Clara why she had chosen this path. The first wave of enemy fighters appeared on the horizon. Clara took a deep breath, steadying herself. She could feel the cubs around her, their energy, their focus, their readiness. She raised her hand. Move out. Protect the colonies. No one gets left behind. The transport ship shook as the first shots rang out. Clara gritted her teeth and took command, guiding the cubs through the chaos. Each decision mattered. Each command could save lives. But Clara had trained them well. They moved as a unit, anticipating her moves, covering each other, and striking back at the enemy. Time seemed to stretch. Every second was a test of courage, skill, and willpower. Clara could see the fear in the young soldiers' eyes, but she also saw determination. They would not back down. They would fight because they had learned to survive, to protect, and to lead when necessary. By the end of the first engagement, the enemy ships retreated, unable to break the human defense. The cubs had performed beyond expectation, thanks to Clara's guidance. They were bruised, tired, but alive. And Clara knew that this was only the beginning. The galaxy would test them again and again. As the transport ship returned to the base, Clara looked at the cubs. You did well, she said, her voice firm but proud. Remember this feeling. The courage you showed today is what makes a soldier great. You have a long journey ahead, but I believe in you. Lily Carter stepped forward, smiling despite the dirt and scratches on her face. Sergeant Westwood, we couldn't have done it without you. Clara shook her head. You did it yourselves? I just guided you. The real courage is in you. Never forget that. That night, the cubs rested, exhausted but alive. Clara stood by the window, looking out at the stars. She knew that this victory was only temporary, that the galaxy would not remain quiet for long. But she also knew something important. Humanity was capable of facing any threat because they had courage, determination, and the will to protect one another. And Clara Westwood would be there, leading them, guiding them, and standing guard for those who could not stand alone. Part 3. The morning after their first battle, Clara Westwood stood on the training deck, watching the cubs move through drills again. The victory had been small, but meaningful. Each of the young soldiers carried a mix of pride and exhaustion on their faces. Clara knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, and danger waited in the shadows. Lieutenant Harper approached her quietly. Sergeant, the recon teams reported unusual activity near the Neuralis sector. The fleet there is moving strangely, like they're preparing for something big. Clara frowned. The Neuralis sector was home to several human colonies, as well as vital supply stations. If the enemy planned an attack there, the consequences could be catastrophic. How long until we get full intel? She asked. 3 hours, maybe less, Harper replied. Sensors are having trouble with their stealth technology. Whatever they're planning, it's clever. Clara nodded. She turned to the cubs, who had gathered nearby, still in their training uniforms. Listen up, she said firmly. There's a new threat. We don't know exactly what it is, but we will find out. Today, we prepare, and soon, we act. Stay focused. Work as a team. Protect each other. The cubs nodded, their expressions serious. Clara felt pride in their determination. They were learning quickly, but the real test was still ahead. By mid-morning, intelligence reports came in. The enemy fleet was massive, larger than anything human forces had faced in this sector for years. The ships were armed with advanced weapons, faster than most human interceptors, and equipped with technology that could disable shields with precision strikes. It was a threat that demanded strategy, courage, and unity. Clara gathered the cubs in the command room. "This is it," she said, pointing to the holoscreen that displayed the enemy fleet. "They are stronger than us in numbers, faster than us in attacks, but we have something they don't. Humans fight with courage, with purpose, and we protect one another. That is our strength. You must trust your training, trust your instincts, and trust me. Every life matters, and every choice counts." Lily Carter, standing near the front, raised her hand. "Sergeant Westwood, what if we lose?" Clara met her gaze steadily. "Then, we fight until the last breath. And even if we fall together, protecting those who cannot protect themselves. Losing is not an option, but bravery is. And courage does not always come without risk." The cubs absorbed her words. Some nodded silently, while others clenched their fists in determination. Clara could see their fear, but, more importantly, she saw resolve. They were ready to face whatever came next. Hours later, the human fleet moved toward the Neuralis sector, with Clara's transport leading a squadron of fighters. The cubs were on board, ready for deployment. The space around them was quiet at first, the stars stretching endlessly in every direction. But that calm would not last. Suddenly, the enemy ships emerged from stealth. Hundreds of dark vessels spread across the sector like a shadow, weapons charged, and targeting systems locked on human colonies. Clara's jaw tightened. This was worse than they had anticipated. "Prepare for battle," she shouted. "Cubs, stick with your teams. Cover your squad mates. Move." The transport ship shuddered as the first wave of enemy fighters attacked. Clara took the controls for the main squad, coordinating movements with precision. The cubs followed her commands, their training guiding their actions. Eric Mason, the tall young soldier, moved quickly to intercept a fighter heading toward a civilian station. "I've got it," he shouted, firing a burst that sent the enemy ship spinning out of control. "Good work, Mason," Clara responded. "Keep moving. Protect the civilians." Meanwhile, Lily Carter and 2 other cubs took a flanking position, providing cover fire for the human interceptors. The enemy was relentless, attacking with speed and coordination. But Clara's squad had something the enemy did not. They were united, thinking as one, and willing to sacrifice for each other. The battle raged for hours. Shields flared, engines screamed, and explosions lit the darkness of space. Clara moved with calm precision, directing the cubs, supporting the pilots, and engaging the enemy when necessary. She could see the fear in the young soldier's eyes, but she also saw courage blooming. Each small victory, saving a colony, downing an enemy ship, built their confidence. At one point, a massive enemy cruiser emerged from hyperspace. Its weapons were unlike anything Clara had seen, capable of destroying multiple stations with a single salvo. The human fleet faltered under the sudden firepower. Clara realized that direct confrontation would be suicide. They needed strategy, not brute force. She called the cubs together in the command deck. "We can't fight them head-on," she explained. "We need to split them, lure them into traps, and strike where they are weakest. Follow my lead. Communication is key. Stay together, stay sharp." The cubs nodded, moving into position as Clara directed the fleet. Using evasive maneuvers and clever tactics, they managed to isolate sections of the enemy fleet, hitting them with precision strikes. The humans had fewer ships, but they were faster, smarter, and more coordinated. Clara's leadership turned the tide. Hours later, the enemy retreated, damaged and confused. The human colonies were safe, and the fleet had won the battle against overwhelming odds. The cubs had performed brilliantly, each one proving their courage and skill. Clara looked at them with pride. They were no longer inexperienced soldiers. They were a team, capable of facing the galaxy's threats. As the fleet returned to the base, Clara gathered the cubs on the hangar deck. "You did well today," she said. "Each of you showed courage, skill, and determination. You saved lives and proved that humanity is not to be underestimated. Remember this feeling. The galaxy may test you again, and we will be ready." Lily Carter stepped forward, her uniform scorched and dirty from battle. Sergeant Westwood, we couldn't have done it without you. Clara shook her head. No, you did it yourselves. I guided you. But the bravery, the courage, the choices, all of that was yours. You are heroes. The Cubs cheered quietly, proud but humble. They knew this was only one battle. The galaxy was vast, and dangers were always lurking. But Clara had shown them that humans could survive, fight, and protect what mattered. That night, as the stars shone outside the base windows, Clara sat alone for a moment. She thought about the Cubs, their bravery, and the battles yet to come. The galaxy was dangerous, and threats were growing. But she knew humanity was strong. They fought not just with weapons, but with courage, unity, and the will to protect one another. The medal she had received earlier seemed lighter now, not because it was less important, but because she understood something deeper. Recognition was not what mattered most. What mattered was the people she had inspired, the lives she had saved, and the hope that humanity could overcome even the greatest challenges. Clara knew that the Cubs would grow stronger with every mission, every challenge. And she would be there to guide them, to stand with them, and to fight beside them. Together, they would face the galaxy, and together, they would prevail. As she closed her eyes, a quiet determination settled over her. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new battles, and perhaps new enemies. But Clara Westwood, the Cubs, and the human fleet were ready. They had courage, skill, and heart. And that was more powerful than any weapon the galaxy could throw at them. Part 4. The victory at the Neuralis sector was celebrated across the human fleet, but Clara Westwood knew better than to grow complacent. The galaxy was full of dangers, and enemies were always planning their next strike. The Cubs had performed brilliantly, but she could see their exhaustion. Their faces were tired, their movements slower, but their eyes still held determination. Clara knew she had to prepare them for what would come next. Rest is important, she told them as they walked through the hangar deck. But training never stops. We must stay ready. Our enemies will return, and when they do, we must be stronger than before. Lily Carter, still wiping soot from her uniform, nodded. We understand, Sergeant. We're ready. Clara smiled, appreciating the young soldier's courage. She knew the Cubs were brave, but courage alone would not be enough. Strategy, teamwork, and discipline were just as important. A few hours later, an urgent communication came through from General Evans. Sergeant Westwood, the general's voice was grave. We've received intelligence of a hostile incursion near the Lyria colonies. This threat is more dangerous than the previous one. Your squad, along with the Cubs, is to deploy immediately. Clara's jaw tightened. Lyria was a crucial sector, home to valuable resources and thousands of civilians. They could not afford to lose it. Understood, General. We will depart immediately. The transport ship lifted off the base, carrying Clara, the Cubs, and the platoon. The journey to Lyria was tense. Clara could feel the anticipation and fear among the young soldiers. She walked among them, checking their equipment, offering words of encouragement. Remember your training. Stick together. Communicate. Protect one another. We survive as a unit, not as individuals. As they approached the Lyria system, sensors picked up multiple enemy vessels blocking the path to the colonies. Clara frowned. These ships were larger, faster, and more heavily armed than anything they had faced before. The enemy had learned from their previous defeat. Cubs, Clara said firmly. This is not a training exercise. This is real. Lives are at stake. We fight not just for ourselves, but for the people who cannot defend themselves. Stay focused. Follow my lead. Trust each other. The battle began immediately. Enemy ships fired plasma cannons and missiles, striking the transport ship with incredible force. Clara maneuvered the ship with precision, evading attacks while coordinating the fleet. The Cubs followed her commands, moving in formation and providing cover fire for the transport. Eric Mason intercepted a fighter heading toward a civilian colony. I've got it, he shouted, firing a controlled burst that destroyed the enemy vessel. Good work, Mason, Clara replied. Keep moving. Protect the civilians. Lily Carter and 2 other Cubs flanked an enemy cruiser, delivering precision attacks that disabled its weapons systems. Clara watched with pride. Their training had prepared them for this. But the reality of battle was always more intense. Suddenly, a larger enemy ship emerged from hyperspace, its size dwarfing the human vessels. It fired a massive energy beam, striking a nearby colony and causing explosions to ripple across the surface. Clara's heart raced. They had underestimated this enemy. "Focus on strategy," she shouted. "Do not engage the main ship directly. Use the terrain, the asteroid fields, and hit where they are weakest. Move quickly and stay together." The Cubs executed her orders perfectly. They used asteroid fields to hide, launched coordinated attacks, and managed to strike at the enemy ship's engines. The massive vessel faltered, slowed by the precise assaults. Clara's fleet pressed the advantage, turning the tide of the battle. But just as they began to gain control, an emergency alert sounded. One of the colonies was under direct assault, and civilians were trapped in the blast zone. Clara's heart sank. They could not save everyone at once. She had to make a choice. "Cubs, listen," she called. "We split into teams. Team Alpha will cover the colony and evacuate civilians. Team Beta will continue engaging the main enemy ship. Communicate constantly. Do not let anyone fall behind. Move." The Cubs divided quickly, moving with confidence and precision. Clara took command of Team Beta, engaging the enemy vessel with calculated strikes. Each maneuver, each shot, each decision could mean life or death. Meanwhile, Team Alpha, led by Lily Carter, worked to evacuate civilians. They navigated through debris, dodged enemy fire, and helped the frightened population board transport ships. Lily's voice was calm and authoritative. "Stay close. Follow my lead. We get everyone out safely." The enemy ship retaliated, firing missiles and energy beams. One strike hit close to Lily's team, sending them skidding across the surface of the colony. Clara watched from her ship, coordinating support fire to protect them. The Cubs fought bravely, their teamwork and courage keeping them alive. Hours passed like minutes. The battle was intense, brutal, and exhausting. Clara's voice remained steady over the comms, directing strikes, providing encouragement, and making split-second decisions. She could feel the Cubs' fatigue, but also their determination. They would not give up. Finally, the enemy ship began to falter. Its engines were crippled, its weapons offline, and morale among the enemy forces was collapsing. Clara seized the opportunity. "All units, focus fire. Hit the main vessel now. This is our chance to end it." The fleet launched a coordinated assault, striking the enemy ship from multiple directions. The massive vessel erupted in flames, its destruction lighting up the darkness of space. The remaining enemy ships retreated, unable to continue the fight. Silence followed. The colonies were safe, the enemy defeated, and the human fleet had prevailed against overwhelming odds. Clara exhaled slowly, relief washing over her. She looked at the Cubs, their faces covered in sweat, soot, and bruises, yet glowing with pride. They had done it. They had survived. They had won. Lily Carter approached Clara, exhausted but smiling. "We did it. Thanks to you, Sergeant." Clara shook her head. "No, you did it yourselves. I guided you, but the courage, the decisions, the determination, all of that was yours. You are heroes." Eric Mason added, "Sergeant, we've learned so much from you. You don't just fight, you inspire. We want to be like you." Clara felt a lump in her throat. She had always fought for duty, for survival, for the people she protected. Recognition had never been her goal. But seeing the Cubs' admiration, their respect, and their willingness to follow her lead, it was powerful. Back at the base, the platoon continued to stand guard around Clara, just as they had when she first awoke to the medal ceremony. The Cubs gathered around her, sharing stories of the battle, laughing quietly despite the exhaustion, and celebrating their survival. Clara realized something important. Leadership was not just about giving orders. It was about trust, guidance, and inspiring others to find their own courage. That night, Clara sat alone for a moment, looking at the stars. The galaxy was vast, dangerous, and unpredictable. But she knew something else. It was full of humans willing to fight for one another, willing to stand together against impossible odds. That was humanity's greatest strength. And Clara Westwood would be there, guiding, protecting, and leading them through whatever darkness awaited. She had faced death, chaos, and overwhelming enemies, and survived. And now, she was not alone. The Cubs, the Platoon, and the human fleet stood with her, ready to face the galaxy, no matter what came next. For the first time, Clara allowed herself a small smile. They had faced impossible odds and triumphed. But the galaxy would not stay quiet for long. And she was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. Part 5. The morning after the battle at the Lyria colonies, Clara Westwood stood on the observation deck of the human fleet flagship. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the hull, silent witnesses to the battles that had been fought and won. She could see the Cubs gathered below, checking equipment, cleaning weapons, and quietly talking about the previous day's events. Their exhaustion was evident, but so was their pride. They had faced overwhelming odds and emerged victorious. Lieutenant Harper approached her quietly. "Sergeant, we've received reports of unusual activity near the Orion sector. Recon indicates a massive enemy fleet is preparing to strike human colonies there. This could be their final push." Clara's jaw tightened. The enemy had grown bolder, larger, and more dangerous. They had suffered defeats, but now they were mobilizing for something bigger, something decisive. "Prepare the fleet," she said firmly. "We're going to meet them before they reach the colonies. The Cubs will be with us. They've proven themselves capable. They will fight, and they will survive." The young soldiers, though weary, rallied quickly when Clara called them together. "Listen up," she said. "We're facing the largest threat humanity has seen in this sector. The enemy is stronger than ever. But so are we. Remember your training. Stick together. Communicate. Protect one another. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is acting despite it. Today, we make a stand. And we do it together." Lily Carter stepped forward. "Sergeant Westwood, we're ready. We'll follow your lead, no matter what." Clara nodded, feeling a surge of pride. She had trained them, guided them, and watched them grow into true soldiers. Now, it was time to see if everything they had learned would carry them through the greatest battle of their lives. The fleet moved into position near the Orion sector. Sensors picked up the enemy ships, their numbers staggering, their weapons advanced and deadly. Clara assessed the situation, calculating the best strategy. A direct assault would be suicide. They needed to divide the enemy fleet, isolate smaller groups, and strike with precision. "Cubs, this is it," Clara said. "We split into squads. Alpha and Beta teams will handle flanking maneuvers. Team Gamma will provide cover fire for the civilians. Follow my lead, communicate constantly, and never leave anyone behind. Move." The young soldiers moved with confidence, executing Clara's orders perfectly. Their earlier battles had prepared them, but this was unlike anything they had faced before. Explosions erupted across space as enemy ships engaged, weapons firing, shields flaring. Clara's squad targeted a large enemy cruiser. She coordinated strikes, giving orders to the Cubs. "Mason, take the left flank. Carter, cover the rear. Everyone else, focus on disabling their engines." The Cubs worked in perfect unison, following her guidance while making quick decisions on their own. Their training and courage shone through in every movement. They anticipated enemy attacks, protected each other, and struck with precision. In the middle of the battle, a massive enemy fighter broke through the fleet's defenses and aimed for Clara's transport. She saw it coming on the radar and yelled, "Evasive maneuvers. Move, move, move." The ship shook violently as the fighter fired a volley of plasma blasts. Clara guided the transport skillfully, narrowly avoiding destruction. "Carter, Mason, intercept," she shouted. Lily Carter and Eric Mason reacted instantly, firing at the enemy fighter. Their coordinated assault disabled the ship's engines, sending it spinning out of control. Clara exhaled, relief mixing with adrenaline. The Cubs had saved the transport. The battle raged for hours, each side taking heavy damage. Clara's fleet was outnumbered, but their teamwork, courage, and strategy gave them the edge. She led multiple coordinated strikes, guiding the Cubs to exploit weaknesses in the enemy formation. Finally, they isolated the enemy flagship, a massive warship bristling with weapons. Clara knew that defeating it would break the enemy's morale, and, in the battle, all units, Focus on the flagship, she commanded. The Cubs and the fleet moved in perfect coordination. Alpha Team attacked the left flank, Beta Team the right, while Clara's squad targeted the engines. Each shot was precise, each maneuver calculated. The flagship fired back, but the combined efforts of human forces slowly wore it down. The flagship's shields flickered, sparks flying across its surface. Clara could see the enemy crew scrambling, panic spreading. Now, she shouted. Strike the core. A coordinated volley of missiles and energy blasts hit the flagship's core. The warship erupted in flames, its destruction shaking the surrounding ships. The remaining enemy vessels retreated in confusion, unable to continue the fight. The battle was won. Silence followed. Clara's fleet regrouped, checking for survivors and assessing damage. The Cubs were battered, bruised, and exhausted, but they were alive. They had fought bravely, demonstrating skill, courage, and determination. Clara looked at each of them, pride swelling in her chest. You did it, she said, her voice steady but emotional. Each of you showed what it means to be human. You fought with courage, protected one another, and proved that humanity will never bow to fear or oppression. You are heroes. Lily Carter stepped forward, holding out her hand. Sergeant Westwood, we couldn't have done it without you. Clara shook her head. No, you did it yourselves. I guided you. Yes, but every act of bravery, every decision, every choice, it was yours. You have earned the respect of the fleet and of all humanity. The commander of the human fleet, Admiral Rowe, approached. Sergeant Westwood, your leadership has been extraordinary. These young soldiers have performed beyond expectations because of your guidance. Humanity owes you a debt of gratitude. Clara nodded humbly. Thank you, sir. But the real heroes are the Cubs. They faced impossible odds and survived. They carried the fight, and they protected lives. They are the reason we succeeded. Admiral Rowe smiled. Then it is settled. You and the Cubs will be recognized formally. Medals, commendations, and honors will be awarded. Humanity will remember your courage. The Cubs cheered quietly, proud but humble. They knew the galaxy was vast, and dangers were always waiting. But they had learned something important. They had courage, skill, and unity. And, with Clara guiding them, they could face anything. Later, back at the base, Clara stood alone on the observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly before her, silent and beautiful. She thought about the battles, the lives saved, and the young soldiers she had guided. Humanity had faced impossible odds and survived. The Cubs had grown into capable, courageous soldiers. The galaxy was dangerous, but humans were stronger than anyone had believed. A soft voice broke her thoughts. Lily Carter stood beside her. Sergeant, what now? Clara smiled. Now we prepare. The galaxy will not stay quiet for long, but we will be ready. Humans fight not just with weapons, but with courage, determination, and heart. And as long as we stand together, we will always prevail. Lily nodded, looking at the stars. I believe that. I believe in us. Clara placed a hand on Lily's shoulder. Good. That is what matters. Believe in yourselves, believe in your team, and never forget why we fight. Humanity is strong. We protect what we love, and we never give up. As the fleet gathered for the formal commendation ceremony, Clara stood at the front, watching the Cubs receive recognition for their bravery. Medals were placed on their chests, handshakes exchanged, and words of praise given. Each young soldier smiled, proud of their achievements, yet humble in the face of the galaxy's vastness. Clara received a final salute from the Cubs. Their eyes reflected admiration, trust, and respect. She returned the salute, feeling the weight of responsibility and pride. They had fought together, survived together, and proven that humans could overcome impossible odds. That night, Clara returned to her quarters. She looked at the medal she had received months earlier, now joined by the accomplishments of the Cubs. It was not just a symbol of her courage, but of humanity's potential. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, but humans had heart, unity, and courage. And with those, they could face anything. Clara Westwood lay down, exhausted but content. The Cubs were safe, the colonies were protected, and humanity had triumphed once more. The galaxy would continue to challenge them, but Clara knew one thing with certainty. Humans would always rise, always fight, and always protect what they loved. And with that thought, she closed her eyes, ready for whatever adventures the stars held next. Humanity had proven its strength, and Clara Westwood had led them to a brighter, victorious future.